All right, let's dive right in. We're going to look at a super simple three-verse passage in the book of John. But what's hiding inside this short story is a really powerful lesson on what true saving faith actually looks like. And here's the thing, it's not just a feeling, it's something you can actually see.
So that's really the big question for our explainer today, isn't it? If faith is real, how does it show itself? The Bible seems to suggest it's not some invisible private affair, it has tangible evidence. And John chapter 4, well, it gives us two crystal clear markers to look for.
Now, before we get to that evidence, we got to set the scene. As is so often the case in Scripture, where something happens is just as important as what happens. So we need to understand the backdrop for Jesus' return to his home turf of Galilee.
Okay, so Jesus wraps up a pretty amazing 2 days with the Samaritans, and then heads north, back to Galilee. Now, what the text makes really clear is that this wasn't just some random road trip. Nope. Galilee was the place God had specifically prepared to be the headquarters for the most significant public ministry in all of human history. And here's what's so incredible about why Galilee was the perfect spot. It wasn't some sleepy, quiet backwater. It was a buzzing strategic hub. First off, you've got this really diverse population, which meant people were just more open to new faces and new ideas. Second, it was basically a global crossroads. Major trade routes ran right through it, so news and new teachings could travel fast. Third, it was packed with people. We're talking over 200 cities, many with populations of 15,000 or more. And finally, the people themselves had a reputation for being more open-minded, for actively seeking out fresh perspectives. It was the perfect launchpad. So with that scene set, the passage presents two really clear, visible signs. You could call them evidences of genuine faith. First, a real believer honors Jesus. And second, a real believer welcomes and receives Jesus. Let's break these down one by one. Let's start with that first one, honoring Jesus. To really get what it means to honor him, John does something brilliant. He first shows us what it looks like to dishonor him. It creates this incredibly powerful and dramatic contrast. And get this, Jesus says it himself, as he's deliberately bypassing his specific hometown of Nazareth. The very people who watched him grow up, his neighbors, the friends he had as a kid, they were the ones who rejected him the most fiercely. This really sets the stage for what happens next in the rest of Galilee. And the contrast is just stark. In his hometown of Nazareth, rejection, outright hostility. I mean, they literally tried to kill him. But in the wider region of Galilee, he was met with honor and a warm reception. There's a sharp line being drawn here. One is the evidence of unbelief, the other is the clear evidence of faith.
So what does it actually mean to honor Jesus? The Greek word used here is temen, and it's not just about polite respect, It means to place a high value on something, to esteem it, to see its immense worth. We can break this idea of honor down into three crucial parts. First, it means recognizing his superior standing, that he is exalted, he is divine, and he is absolutely worthy of worship. Second, it carries the idea of a price. To honor him is to see him as so valuable that he is worth the price of your entire life. And third, it means he is precious, that you value him above everything else you could possibly possess. This verse from 1 Peter just captures that third dimension perfectly. For those who believe, Jesus isn't just an important figure, he is precious. This is the heart of what it means to honor him, and it is the first great evidence of real faith. Okay, so that's the first evidence. Now let's see how it builds to the second one, welcoming and receiving Jesus. Because when you truly honor him in your heart, it naturally leads to this kind of outward action.
So you have to ask, right? What was so different about the folks in Galilee? Why did they welcome him when his own hometown basically slammed the door in his face? Well, the passage gives us some pretty clear clues.
It seems to boil down to three key things. First, they were willing to listen. They had seen Jesus' ministry down in Jerusalem, and instead of being dismissive, they were attentive. Second, they were sincere seekers of God. These were people who made the long, difficult journey to Jerusalem for the Passover because they had a genuine hunger for God. And third, they wanted a personal experience. They saw what Jesus did elsewhere and wanted him to come and minister among them too. And that whole attitude of seeking, it connects directly to this foundational principle of faith. As the book of Hebrews tells us, anyone who comes to God must believe that he exists
And, this is key, that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. The Galileans embodied this. Their seeking heart prepared them to receive him. So, the crucial point is this. It's one thing to hear about Jesus or see his work from a distance, but it's another thing entirely to welcome him into your own life, your own town, your own heart. This act of receiving, this desire for a personal experience, that is the second and maybe the greatest evidence of genuine faith. That famous verse from Revelation just paints the perfect picture, doesn't it? Christ stands at the door and knocks. Faith isn't just acknowledging that he's there. Faith is the act of hearing his voice and actually opening the door. That is what the Galileans did. So let's bring these two powerful ideas together. This passage from John teaches us that genuine, saving faith is not a hidden secret. It is a faith that shows itself in clear, undeniable ways.
So, the key takeaway is that real faith is visible. It always has evidence. As we've seen, that evidence comes in two forms: honoring Jesus, valuing him above all else, seeing him as precious, and welcoming Jesus, actively opening the door of our lives to him and seeking a personal experience with him.
And that leaves us with a final thought to reflect on. The Galileans welcomed a man who physically walked into their towns 2,000 years ago. For us today, in our modern world, what does it truly look like to give him that same honor and to open the door and welcome him in?